Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves, and I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, Matthew Merrett. Matt, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, thank you. Football is back. I was just watching the highlights of the Patriots game from pre-season, getting a bit of AFC East rival research in from pre-season, but it's just nice to be able to sit down and watch some football highlights again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice to get back into it for sure, and we're not far from our game on Saturday night. It's going to be really, really fun. So yeah, we're right into the swing of things. We're right into the middle of training camp where all the stories get drawn out and you get some silly stuff going on, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, on the show, we'll preview the Giants game later on as we wrap up the show. Just few little points as we look forward to the game, some of the things we're looking forward to, some of the matchups we might anticipate. Be interesting to see. We also have a interview with Matt O'Leary, who is the prominent Jets YouTuber, and also he's on Twitter quite prominently. So yeah, he had a good chat with him, and that will be coming up in the show. But I thought we'd just kick it off with a little bit of a chat. There's not much news to talk about. I guess we're tentatively waiting at this point the Elijah Moore MRI result. We're praying that it's a week or two and he'll be back for week one, but we'll see. It's not the greatest news when you see that scrolling up on Twitter. But other than that, I think it's, some of the stories coming out, some of the over-the-top kind of let's bury the Jets at this time of the season is really frustrating. I know you've been, posting stuff on our group chat about all these stupid points. What's your feelings about all this stuff that's coming out about, the overreaction over Zach and really nothing really about when he actually comes up with a good answer? And there's no really kind of answer to that. It's all about when he struggles, there's massive news about it, and when he explains why in a very good way, there's nothing really to say about that, is it?
Yeah, so I have a theory, and it's probably best explained in the sense that during the season, both college players, NFL teams, NFL players, you see them every single week, and everyone is watching them and everyone's on their eyes. So you're dealing, when you're talking in the season, you're dealing in absolutes, you're dealing in what you're seeing in front of you, you're dealing in facts, and obviously there are opinions around those, but there are examples around them. As soon as the season finishes, you stop dealing in those absolutes, you're dealing in your memories and your recollections, and sometimes they obviously don't always match up, so you kind of revert back to what you think you know and what feels comfortable. And the longer the off-season goes on for, the less you rely on the absolutes and what you saw before, and go back to what you've seen take place before and what your assumptions are. And there are less facts to deal in. And we are now at the point where we have had the most amount of time you can go without seeing football. So it's heightened at the moment because there are the least amount of facts available between the seasons. And that's kind of the point we've got to now where we're seeing some absolutely ridiculous takes happen because these media personalities are reverting back to what they think they know and what they think is right about the Jets and is about quarterbacks from BYU. There was an absolutely ridiculous one that was posted yesterday, which was about how the Jets haven't got enough fire in their bellies because there haven't been any fights in training camp, which is laughable, and you wouldn't hear that said about any other team or any other coach. It just doesn't make sense. And I would much rather have no fights in training camp. And kind of the reasoning Salah gave behind that was the respect that the players have for each other, the understanding that they're one team trying to get better together, as opposed to someone like Dan Campbell who's coming out and saying he wants his players to rip each other's heads off. Yeah, exactly. It's only going to lead to injuries into the season. So we're at this strange point. I mean, David replied to that saying, well, when Geno Smith broke his jaw, that was really good for our Super Bowl run. Yeah, exactly. And it's laughable. So I think we're at this point now where we just need the season to start and kind of begin to start dealing in those facts and real storylines and what we are all looking at, as opposed to all of these different voices which have different thoughts around what they think the Jets are based on 2 seasons of Adam Gase under a Mike McCagnon built roster, what they think a BYU quarterback is who didn't perhaps have the strongest schedule in history. He didn't play in the national championship game. What they think Robert Saleh is a minority head coach who is getting his first time in a major media market. All of these things are just getting stacked on top of each other at the moment, and it's becoming a bit monotonous.
Yeah, we can't
we
get.
talk quite a lot about how the media treats the Jets, and I do think to some extent it is obviously justified. They are the second worst team in the NFL by the draft order, but some of the lack of nuance and understanding and ability to project where this team is going and understand the moves that have been made is quite shocking. I think that's what we as fans find so frustrating, where when we follow them and we just hear this absolute garbage takes.
I think the biggest problem is that a lot of people, take these people's word and they kind of take what they're saying as truths or good opinions. There's a lot of people who unfortunately follow this, these really ill-informed opinions. When you follow people who knew the situation, especially someone like Daniel Jeremiah, who obviously knows Joe Douglas very well, knows what they're building here. And the people like that, they know what's happening. They know that there's a difference here to what was happening last year. Now, the results, we'll see what happens with the results, but there's a difference in what's being put together here than what's been in the last few years, for sure. And I think people in the know, they're just quietly kind of sitting back and seeing what happens. And I just one of those things where it's just obviously the low hanging fruit. They're gonna take it. They're gonna say these things, and it just kind of drives clicks. They gotta fill content, but it is quite tiresome. And I think it's just because I think we're tired of having that perception. I think with the gay stuff, I think we're just really excited to be out of the gay things, and we wish other people would not still associate us with like being the Jets gays, the gays Jets, and more like we're a new team, kind of like have a chance to see us. But that'll only happen from tomorrow night onwards, right? We've got to show it on the field, in front of people, in front of the cameras, put those highlights up on NFL when they show, Matt Jones throwing a very pedestrian pass and they make a big deal out of it, with the target symbol. That kind of stuff can help move things along, especially and obviously in the regular season. We've got to start putting up those wins and being more competitive. So I think we just want to get to the season at this point, because I think we'll see. We know where we're going. I think we're going to be really competitive this year. If not, we're not going to be stellar, but we're going to be competitive, and I think they'll help drive that narrative out that the Jets are a bit of a joke team. So totally. Just a few weeks left. Just hold on tight. I think we just have to hold on tight. Just block out all the noise and just But it is interesting. Like, so Zach's answer was fantastic of why he's throwing picks. He's trying more things out, and there was kind of very minimal pickup on that. Outside of the Jets kind of community really kind of loving the answer. With the fight stuff, it's kind of ridiculous because, like you said, obviously fights can cause the injuries and stuff, but also, it looks like I was listening to Connor Hughes, and he was basically saying that, it looks like they've been. He made the point that we all know that they've had kind of a padded practice, and then they've had a few days where they've not had kind of they're spreading them out, which kind of helps diffuse any of that kind of extra physicality and tension, and helps them kind of like spread it out. Now, when we go to face the Packers and the Eagles in kind of joint practices, we may see more fights, because that's when you start to have more. You have that all the time in joint practices, right? So we'll see what happens there, but it's just a lazy take, and it's just something to fill airtime, so we just have to just ignore it at this point.
I think during the season it's going to be interesting, just going back to your point about wins, is how the media take the Jets record v how they take the Jets looking on the field. Because I don't know about you, but I would almost prefer this season to be a 6-11 with Zach looking really good and losing games 34-31 than kind of a 9-8 where Zach looks a bit iffy and the defense wins us games. A bit like that home stretch in Gase's first season where we went 6-2, but we were winning games like 14-9, or 10-7, whatever it was. And I think just that's something to bear in mind as we go into the season, is just there is the perception around performance, the perception around results. And I think as Jets fans going into the season, I think we should definitely separate those two.
Oh, for sure. I think it's, like I said, when I say competitive, it doesn't mean that we're going to win those games. It's just so that we're not going to get destroyed by the Seahawks on the road, or, like we're going to be more like the team that we saw win those few games where we gave good teams, good things to think about. And hopefully we'll do that. We may win some of those games, we may lose some of those games, but if we show that we can put up some points, that we're not completely asleep on offense, like we've been for quite a few years right now, and the defenses has to bail us out. I think if we have that, and we have some fun games that we lose. I think the Chargers last year, right? They lost a lot of games, but they put up a lot of points as well. And Justin Herbert obviously showed a lot of promise and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think that's the kind of the blueprint of what we would love to see, right? Like, you don't win that many games, you still get maybe a decent draft pick next year, but really start to build on some really good performances that didn't come through in the wins total. So no, I'm with you on that one. I think if we switch attention to the other one that looks to be kind of the story that's kind of rounding out, hopefully finishing off its run now with the Jets beat, is the Denzel Mims one, which is another frustrating one. They're kind of pushing, a lot of them kind of deny that they're just reporting the facts, but they definitely had the bit between their teeth in terms of what was happening there, and they've got to find a story. I understand that, but it was a bit ridiculous where people were doubting whether we were going to release him. I think he came out obviously in the press conference and said he lost 20 pounds from when he was when he had the food poison situation, which is significant. And that you see that he has drive to succeed, and he has all the physical attributes. I just think he's going to be absolutely fine, and I think it's thankfully we're probably past the worst of that story, really.
Yeah, we're talking about Denzel Mims here, and just a reminder of what kind of player is. He's been the wide receiver who's at his best when the lights come on and he's got his pads on and he can physically impose himself on the cornerback, on the defensive back in front of him. And we've got to remember, we're still in that period where they're only ramping up these practices and they're ramping up the competition levels. They're not always going 100% with pads on, going fully contested 50-50 balls. And I think the more we start to see that, and he's able to physically impose his will on the cornerbacks and the defensive backs, the more we'll see him getting that first team rotation. He was never always the crispest route runner, which is always what is going to cause separation when you're doing unpadded practices. He's kind of that straight line speed, physical, high point wide receiver. And as we see him in pre-season and as we see the practices and intensity get ramped up more and more and more, I think he'll work his way back into that rotation, because he is such a nice option for the Jets to have in that rotation. And he's going to be a decent part of that offense. And I think the other thing to just remember is wide receivers get injured. Wide receivers miss snaps, miss drives, miss quarters in games week in, week out. And when you have two receivers like Corey Davis and Denzel Mims who are going up for those 50-50 balls, they are going to take knocks. So I don't see any way the Jets move on from him, trade him, cut him, or any of this stuff. I think it is, back to this point, it's the beat notice that this was getting traction, getting clicks, getting attention.
From the
that's
fan
their
base
job. So I think that's kind of half of it, but it has somewhat spiraled. It'll be interesting to see how much he plays against the Giants, and
probably more, right? Without Moore being there, he'll play more snaps than maybe he would. He'll maybe get some earlier reps as well, hopefully. That may be like a silver lining if Moore, let's say hopefully Moore's out for maybe just a couple of weeks, but it gives Mims a chance to kind of get back in, because Moore's had a good run in terms of picking up the offense and being in training, while Mims has been catching up since he was sick. So maybe this gives a chance for Mims to get back, catch up and get in at a place where he works out well, which is obviously during the games in more physical situations. And then Moore's going to be fine when he comes in. He's got so much talent. So if that actually could work in our favour, that if fingers crossed Moore's out only for maybe a week or two, and they're just taking it precautionally with him, that would be the best case scenario. But we hold our breaths with Moore that it's not something worse than that. He's out for a significant amount of the beginning of the season. And I'm just refreshing my phone as we get to the part where everyone's waking up on the East Coast. I'm trying to get a report. I don't know if that'll come through in time for our show, but hopefully we'll see what happens later on today. I think with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll head to my interview with Matt O'Leary. Okay, so we're joined by Matt O'Leary, who is a prominent Jets YouTuber and kind of presence on Twitter. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
No, it's really, really good. Like I was seeing some of the other guests we've had, it's really good to jump in and get to meet some of the other members of the Jets fandom and family, really. So, I want to just start off with, which I always start off with every kind of interview. It's always good to know the person I'm speaking to. How did you get to be a Jets fan? Who got you into it, and when was that?
Yeah, so for me, it was my dad. He grew up a Jets fan, and I remember really the day I got into it was back in the 2003 season. I was 8 years old. And I was working with my dad on a Sunday morning, and we were talking about going to football games and tailgating and how much fun that was. And I've never had that experience, so he said, "You know what?" He's like, let's do this. We'll pick up we like picked up a bunch of hors d'oeuvres, and we like made food, like tailgate style food, like wings and nachos and that stuff. He's like, and we'll watch the game together. And I fell in love with it for that day. So from 8 years old onward, it's been all Jets, and I could thank my dad for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really good. It's like, a lot of the fans overseas, you guys over in the States, it's mostly the dads. Every guest I've had is actually the dads and the family bring it. It's a family tradition, and one that I'm looking to continue with my sons as well. So my son's coming to the Falcons game later. As the listeners will know, I mention it almost every time. I'm just so excited that he gets to come, and we get to watch the Jets. So yeah, passing down that lineage of
Love it.
hopefully better times for the next 10 years than from what we've seen the last 10. Your channel, it started off like it was kind of generalized kind of New York sports teams, and you've kind of devolved it into a Jet specific kind of channel. What was the choice of, why did you change it into that, and what was the kind of process in that?
Yeah, so what happened was I was graduating from college at the time when I started the channel, and all throughout my college career, I did a New York sports radio show, and I was thinking, I was gonna miss doing that, so I wanted to do it in some capacity. So I started the channel, did that for a while, and then I noticed that the Jets videos were doing better views-wise, so I thought, hey, maybe there's something to this, and switched and decided to go full Jets. Probably the last 3 years, I think, has been all Jet stuff.
Wow, so yeah, it's covering a couple of rough years
Yeah.
in the last. I think it was basically the Sam Darnold years. It seems like the last 3 years, I guess, and two of those, unfortunately, being with Adam Gase. So
Yep.
that's the last time we'll mention him today. Coming out of that kind of era. We've obviously been a long time being out of the playoffs, and obviously the last couple of years have been rough. How are you feeling about things, now with Joe Douglas set up with Robert Saleh and the team that's going into this season?
Yeah, I really think the team's headed in the right direction, and I think that Jets fans really have a lot to be optimistic about. It's a very young team, and I don't necessarily expect them to be like a playoff team or anything like that this season, but I think if we could see growth like year over year, and they improve from, let's say, 2 wins and they get to 6 or 7 this year, and then take another step and are closer to a playoff team or a playoff team next year in 2022, I think that's the trajectory I see. And there's, like I said, they have a young core, and they're building something the right way here, it seems, through the NFL draft.
No, absolutely. I mean, going through the off season, say before we get to the draft, free agency, what was one of your favorite moves in free agency?
Honestly, I think it's Carl Lawson. The Jets haven't had an edge rusher probably since John Abraham at this level, so it's been a very long time. And they paid money for him, a significant chunk of change for him to come over here. But I absolutely think it's worth it. The amount of havoc he wreaks getting to the quarterback is impressive, and I think we see those sack numbers finally go up with Quinn and Williams playing in the middle and the rest of this Jets defensive line.
Yeah, it's a pretty chalk answer, but it's definitely one I think we were just all celebrating when that one came through, because it really shows a promising guy, and he has really shown up. I mean, if we're talking on Larson, if we kind of mention what's happening right now with his battle with Becton, we were so obviously excited after a really promising rookie year for Becton. Now, obviously, we're facing up against Lawson, and Lawson's got him almost every day. He's flying past him, getting to Zach and tapping him on the shoulder. What's your feelings on that battle in terms of Are you kind of worried a little bit about Becton, or is it most really, really positive about Lawson, or a bit of both?
I think I'm leaning more towards just the positivity towards Lawson. I actually think that this is kind of a mismatch for Mekhi Becton, who I think is going to be fine in the NFL. I just think with some of those speedier, twitchier kind of edge rushers, he might struggle a little bit at times, which I think we're seeing. Just the pure strength and speed from Lawson is really impressive. But, I mean, let's not forget last year as a rookie, Mekhi Becton put up some really good performances against some, solid edge rushers. So I'm not necessarily worried yet with him, and I think it's all a part of the learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. I think it's all going to be good for him to learn, how to handle this guy, and especially with them kind of helping each other out, and kind of teaching them what you could do better. He's going to help him to maybe improve against that kind of player. But I think he showed that he's pretty good against most of these kind of maybe lengthier guys, but the guys who are quite, Lawson's quite shorter, maybe kind of a bit slippery, a bit hard for him because he's such a big guy. Working with him is going to help him round out maybe a slight deficiency of a certain, opponent that he may face. So I think it's all good. We'll see how the season pulls out, but I really think Lawson, his appearance on One Jets Drive was just didn't anything to douse the flames of excitement with him. He's an absolute workhorse, and he's just going to be absolutely wreaking havoc for offensive lines and quarterbacks this year. Really excited, obviously, and with the rest of the guys up front, creating, you can't really double team him all the time because we've got Q coming off. It's just an exciting time. I think in terms of the draft, obviously we talk about kick off with Zach, and what were your feelings with Zach? Obviously we lost out on the first overall pick with our silly wins last year, and then we ended up with the second overall pick, and it was Zach, or it was Trey Lance, or obviously Justin
Fields.
Justin Fields. I was getting my name. So what was your feelings on those guys going in, and how you feel about Zach?
I liked Zach the best out of the remaining. It was very close between him and Justin Fields. I was not anti-Fields. I know a lot of people on Jets Twitter and online, it was either you loved Zach Wilson and hated Justin Fields, or you loved Justin Fields and hated Zach Wilson. I really didn't feel that way. I preferred Zach Wilson, but I wouldn't have been mad if Justin Fields was the pick. I think I like Lance as a prospect a lot. I just think he needed to go to a situation where maybe he could sit at first, just because he only played one game last year at North Dakota State. So I think he needed a little bit of time to develop a little bit more.
San Fran, right? San Fran's a good spot for him. Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah.
That made so much sense. Where I think Fields or Wilson are someone who could play from day one.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is really exciting, and I think Zach is. Mentioning him, obviously, I mean, Zach is struggling in some practices, as people say. He's having a terrible time. But really, and that interview, I mean, it's funny that he throws a few picks and everyone starts yucking it up. And then he comes out with an absolutely outstanding answer for what he's doing and the process that he's working through. And it basically has minimal pickup because it doesn't feed the narrative. It doesn't feed the narrative of a joke jet situation. It's like, you can't make laugh of that because it's such a great answer and explains everything. What you make of this media? It's just it's hard to make anything of it. It's just they want we know what it's about. They're basically using a big market team and the fans to make a statement and make a bit of a laugh, and it's an easy low hanging fruit for them, isn't it?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. But you're right. It's not going to get the same clicks or the same headlines of, Zach Wilson was 11 of 24 and threw an interception today, or, whatever the line was.
That was ugly from Connor Hughes. And then they exactly. It's just
right. But it's really not a big deal. And you're right. The answer he gave, I absolutely loved, because he's basically saying, hey, I'm trying to see what I can and can't get away with, and I'm not going to do that anymore, which I think that's exactly what you want from a young quarterback.
Yeah. It's what practice is for. Exactly. It's like, do it now. If I throw a pick here, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't mean anything at all. Get it out now. Learn what I can get away with against, a pretty good defense from what we're looking at, and you learn what you can and where he can fit the ball in and what the window's like. Compared to what he had at BYU is absolutely. I think when Salah said this kid's going to be fine and he's working through the process, this is he's a process guy, and it looks like just like Joe Douglas and Salah, they're all guys who like to follow the process. And if you follow the process, the likelihood is that the result's going to be pretty good. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a solid guy for us, if not better. I think I've got a pretty high floor in my estimation of him. He's got a pretty high floor because of just the work ethic and the process he puts forward, and I think obviously the ceiling can be really, really high for him. So we get to see him soon. It looks like there's going to be a quarter. He's going to play the first quarter against the Giants, so we'll have a good chunk of play with Zach out there. In terms of the draft, we go back. So Zach drafted number 2. Who picked behind him was a favorite pick of yours? After Wilson.
It's a tough question because I really liked the Jets draft class, but I'm going to go with Elijah Vera Tucker. I love the idea of getting aggressive and moving up to get him, because when you look at the Jets' biggest weakness, I thought it was the interior offensive line, and I thought that's part of the reason why Sam Darnold struggled so much during his 3 years with the New York Jets, was because of really bad offensive line play. And sure, they could have waited and maybe took a Tevin Jenkins or someone like that, but I think having the assets and realizing, hey, this is a massive need for us, and let's go out and get the best at that position, which I think they did in the interior line portion of the draft, I think was an extremely smart move from Joe Douglas, and I think he is going to be phenomenal. You put him next to Mekhi Becton, and hopefully you forget about the left side of your offensive line for the next decade.
And that's the hope, They looked pretty good earlier. I've seen since AVT's been out with the pec issue, the line looked a little bit more shaky, so it really shows the drop off between him and, from what it looks like, I think Dan Feeney was the one filling in for him. So we love Dan Feeney, right, for other reasons, but he's definitely on the field. On the field, he's he's not really what you want to see compared to AVT. No. So hopefully AVT can get out there. I know they want to get him out for the Green Bay game, so fingers crossed he can get out there and we can have a healthy left side of the line, rolling into week 1. We go a bit further in the draft. I love the AVT move as well, but a move that I think a lot of us were a little bit more surprised with, but I think we really liked it, and then we love it now, is the Elijah Moore, kind of adding to Corey Davis in free agency, and Jamison Crowder's already there, Keelan Cole in free agency, and obviously Denzel Mims last year. Obviously Denzel Mims getting a bit of flack. But overall, what do you think? What's your feeling about this wide receiver room and Denzel Mims and how he fits in as well with his current struggles?
Right, absolutely. I look at this wide receiver room, and while there might not be a star right now, I think they are a deep unit, like 1 through 5, with, in whatever order you want to put them in, but let's just say Davis, Moore, Crowder, Cole, Mims. I think that's a really good unit from top to bottom, and I'm okay with them spreading the ball around. I think Moore is going to have an impact right away as a rookie. I think he's going to,
fingers crossed with the quad injury.
Exactly, fingers crossed. But I think with a veteran like Crowder, who likely won't be here next year because his contract's expiring, I think as the season goes along, we're going to see a lot more of Elijah versus seeing a guy like Jamison Crowder out there. And I really don't understand the Mims thing. Like, it just came out earlier this week that he lost 20 pounds because of food poisoning, and that's why it's been taking him so long to get back. But he's just too talented to, write off so quickly. I think we saw him succeed last year in the worst offense in football. And, he's a big guy, 6'3", vertical threat, has good speed, and a good contested catch guy. So I love Denzel Mims, and I think he's going to be a big part of this team.
No, absolutely. With Denzel Mims, the guy showed in flashes what he could on a very poor team, and when you see him interview, the guy is putting effort in. He's not a guy who seems to be kind of phoning it in. He obviously lost a lot of weight. He had the food poisoning situation. He lost 20 pounds. And he's trying to get that weight back, and he's about halfway there. That's pretty big for that drops for a guy who's 6'3". You lose a couple of days of eating, and it kind of drops quickly because you're having to maintain such a high caloric level, and so it was massive. So it makes a big difference. Dropping 20 pounds is a big difference. So I think him getting back into the swing of things, I think he's going to be absolutely fine, and I think they've really squashed. They've never had there's been such a media the beat, really. I think this is not a national media thing. This is the beat story. The beat have really been on this one. They've really kind of got their claws into this one, but I think. Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. The team really like his role in it, and I think he's a really good pairing for his contested catch stuff and kind of making those last minute grabs on the sideline. You can see Zach throwing those back shoulder throws to him, or kind of rolling out and tossing it. We already saw one in training camp a few weeks ago, right, where he rolled out to the right and got out to Mims. You can see that happening so many times on third down. I really see. So yeah, I think he's got a really good role. And you think of all the other people we've got in this team. I love the wide receiver room as well. So no, really positivity on the defense. If we look at it quickly on the defense side,
sure.
I think CJ Mosley is just looking incredible again, and seeing him on One Jets Drive and his dad hyping him up and showing the workout room in the basement and stuff. You just go, oh wow, we are ready for Mosley. What's your feeling about Mosley and about this kind of the defense overall with this? The linebacker unit is pretty young-ish, and obviously the corner, the defensive backs are also quite young. What's your feelings about the defense overall?
Yeah, and CJ Mosley I think is going to be a big part of that. I love that he lost weight and looks like he's gotten faster. When I was at the green and white scrimmage and seeing him go sideline to sideline, was really impressive. The Jets haven't had a linebacker like that in a long time, and just we saw how good he was in the first game against Buffalo in 2019, and then haven't really seen him since. So I think some Jet fans are sleeping on just how good he was, and even if he's 85% the player he was in Baltimore, I think the Jets will be more than fine at the position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a really crucial part. He's going to play a crucial part in helping kind of this young team around him, when you look at what's in front and behind him, especially, the dynamic of the defensive, line getting pressure, and we think they're going to be pretty successful at attacking the offensive line of the opponent. It obviously counters that in terms of what we have with some youth at the back on the back end. What's your feeling about that balance of getting to the quarterback before he can maybe pick holes in a young, inexperienced backfield?
Yeah, that's going to make such a difference. I think this defense is really going to thrive when it gets to the quarterback. But if there's weeks where maybe they're going up against a really good offensive line, or just the pass rush for whatever reason isn't getting home, then I think they'll struggle a little bit, because in the secondary, they're very, very young. I like Bryce Hall a lot. I think he's going to be good. But outside of that, there's a lot of question marks at the cornerback position. So I think some weeks it might be tough.
No, I think it's something we'll all have to see how it works out. I agree with you on that. If we face a good offensive line and they shut us out a little bit, it could be a little bit difficult for us to contain them. But hopefully the offense won't be completely comatose like it's been the last, I don't know how many years, where we go into a shootout, we've got hardly any chance of actually winning a shootout. Maybe this year we can actually put up some points and actually win games where the defense doesn't have to bail out the offense every single week, So that's the hope going into this season. Matt, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Before we leave and back to us on the regular podcast, how can you shout out any of your your socials, your YouTube channel, any of that?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube and on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Try to keep it light on social media, have a good time talking football and the New York Jets. So again, appreciate you having me on, and appreciate checking me out too.
No, thank you very much. And we'll kick it back to me and Matt. Okay, so that wraps up our interview with Matt O'Leary. We'd like to thank him for joining us. Follow him on his YouTube channel and his Twitter. Good follow, good stuff from him. We'll now switch our attention as we wrap up the show to the Giants preseason game. So, Matt, what are you looking forward to? What kind of things are you looking forward to in the game tomorrow night? Well, I'm going to tonight do a bit as it comes out, right? Saturday night.
Bit of predicting the future here, and I'm going to let all of our listeners know that no matter what happens, the headline of the Jets game is going to be about how Zach Wilson and the offense looks. either good or bad, that is what's going to be written about and be the
good.
starting. But please be good.
I don't care so much from our point of view, or from Zach's point of view, like him being good or bad. I just please, I just can't take the headlines. Can we just have a break from the bad headlines just for one moment? Just because they're just going to blow up every little negative thing into a massive thing. So just please, just like let's see like a great, like a 40-yard throw to Denzel Mims on a back shoulder that just like wows everyone. He just flicks his wrist and just sends it a mile, But anyway, what are you looking forward to in that?
So I think things that I'd be looking for from Zach's performance is kind of the tempo which he plays at. Does he look like he's needing to take a little bit longer to get used to the NFL speed, or is he already up there playing at NFL speeds with his reads, getting them in and out of the huddle, checking, making his adjustments? Does he do that with good momentum? I think the second thing we obviously all want to see is just, does that accuracy translate to the NFL? That was one of his greatest strengths as a college quarterback, was being able to put the ball right in that spot where only his player can make a real play on it. And I think, how is his chemistry with his weapons around him? Is he looking like he's in sync with Corey Davis, with Jamison Crowder, with whichever running back plays that first quarter with him, or is it going to be split between Coleman and Carter as it may possibly be?
Yeah.
So just keeping an eye on Zach's performance is obviously going to be the headline from it, and how that offense looks is going to be what's the main focus of that first quarter in particular.
Yeah, for sure. I think leading on to that in terms of how it would look, that's going to depend on what's up front as well. With no AVT there, we've got, we love Dan Feeney for off the field issues, things and stuff, but obviously he's not, as I was speaking with Matt earlier, he's not like the guy you would want there. And it'll be the first time we see him, it'll be the first time we get to see this line as it currently is put together against a pretty good defensive. I mean, the overall defense of the Giants is pretty good, but the defensive front, we know Leo kind of had a good season last year, and then obviously Dexter Lawrence, first round pick, Danny Shelton's a former first round pick as well, and then you got Lorenzo Carter and Azeez Ojulari off the side, kind of flying off the edge it's a 3-4 defense. I think, do we pick up the pass protection is going to be important, because I think the run, we look to be doing some good things in the run, in the run game with the offensive line, but the passing protection has not been great. But we don't know, is it just our defensive line being that ferocious that it's hard to handle? So we'll get a good feel for that finally. And then obviously you look at the defensive line, our defensive line, the aforementioned guys, and let's see what Carl Lawson does with that line, which is on paper not great. The Giants' offensive line. Let's see what they make of it. I mean, it's going to be Mike Glennon, I believe, is going to be out there, because Daniel Jones is not been playing. They're not going to send him out to face the pack of Wolves that will come after him. It's kind of a interesting thing, but I think it'll be Mike Glennon out there, so we'll see what they'll do with that. But I think it's going to be more about Zach than because of it not being a first string quarterback on the other side. I think it's going to be, the storyline really going to be on how did the rookie do against a pretty good defense. You talk about that front seven, but even the defensive backfield for the Giants as well. James Bradbury and Adoree Jackson at cornerback, and Jabril Peppers and Logan Ryan at safety. It's pretty solid. So it's going to be a good test for Zach and the offense. So hopefully we'll see good some good things. We can get excited about it again, and kind of put a little note taking people can take that maybe he's not a complete bust after 14 practices. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to in the game? Maybe the kicking competition, maybe.
I'm going to steer clear of the kicking competition for now. I still don't think the kicker for week 1 is on the roster as it stands.
Mm-hmm.
What would be interesting to see is, just as we've spoken about before, the Jets are probably going to cycle through a lot of cornerbacks this season. Yeah. I know Bryce Hall and Bless have been playing with the starters throughout camp, but I think there is a lot of opportunity up for grabs, and there's a lot of young men with a chance to stake their claim. So it'll be interesting to see, does anyone really kick that off in this week? Does anyone make their case? Does anyone kind of claim a spot? So I'm really looking forward to seeing if any of the guys are Lamar Jackson, and Michael Carter, Brandon Eccles, and as Isaiah Dunn can put on a good tape.
Right? Jason Pinnock as well. Yeah.
Jason Pinnock. See where that nets us out at, and see where we end up on that position.
Yeah, for sure. I think if one of those young guys can hit as a solid starter, at the fact that they're all kind of late draft or undrafted, that would be amazing value. So it's exciting to see the young guys out there, and we'll be looking forward to watching the whole game and seeing all the guys who are kind of competing for those 53 spots. It'll be fascinating to see how these guys hold up as we go through the depth chart. So I hope everyone enjoys the game. It's our first jet action of this Robert Saleh era, Zach Wilson era, and yeah, we hope for some positivity from the offense and some things to some highlights to clip and get excited about. But anyway, guys, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the game, and we'll see you next week.